Welcome to episode 15 of the Flag Stays Down podcast. Today, again, it's myself, Andy, joined by Matt and Parker. Boys, how you doing on Bears Packers Sunday?
Can't really complain. I'm hoping it's going to be a good day. Had a good day so far, and hoping to kind of carry that through with a Packers victory, and we'll kind of see what happens. Parks.
Yeah, hopefully the Packers pull it out, but still celebrating a nice Chelsea win on Saturday, so that's always good. Had to dig out of about 18 inches of snow up here in Minnesota, which is good. But I was telling Matt before the episode, we planned accordingly. We made a lot of food in house and bought a lot of booze before the snow came, and it's been actually a really nice weekend to stay home. So can't complain either.
Yeah, that sucks. I am not looking forward to the snow coming. We're supposed to be getting it pretty soon. But Parker, you mentioned bought a lot of booze. What are you sipping on tonight?
I still got my Paddleford Creek bourbon that I had last week, but midweek, like during the match, I got to make fun vodka Red Bull drinks and stuff. So it was just a good time to day drink, and you're not going anywhere, you're not doing much. So make some drinks, have some fun, play some video games. It's been the motto of the weekend.
Matt, how about you?
I have my my Slipknot Iowa number 9. It's just been kind of to Parker's sentiment. I've been home, been off since Thursday, kind of, and just kind of getting some stuff done around the house, and having some beers, some bourbon. So it's been a real good week. Collins, what about you?
Well, courtesy of our good buddy Joe, he brought over a little birthday bottle for me. So I've got Barrel Dovetail. So it's whiskey finished in rum, port, and then Cabernet barrels. So it's like 125 proof, but it's delicious.
Nice.
It's a great birthday gift.
Absolutely. So Joe, I know you listen. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. So let's get into the matches here. Midweek, disappointing. Dropped out a chance to finish top in the group in the Champions League. 3-3 draw with at Zenit. Timo Werner on the score sheet twice, and Big Rom chipping in another one. And then we got Claudinho, Asmuan, and Ozdoev for Zenit. I did not get a chance to watch the match. I know you guys did. What did you guys think?
Rough. Just it brought back memories of the Watford game. It was a tough match to watch, especially with a makeshift midfield. A makeshift midfield and defense, for that matter. You got Dave playing a center back role. You got Reese in the midfield. There were just a lot of questions, and I think that nobody really knew where they were really supposed to play. We've talked about our front three not scoring enough goals. So the one shining spot of this match was the fact that Timo and Rom were our 3 goal scorers. I think that definitely helps in an area that we've been lacking in. So I was happy to see that. But still a lot of questions to be answered with kind of where we are as far as injuries and what our best formation kind of looks like, or maybe not formation, but what our best options look like right now.
Matt, you hit it right on the head, man. I watched this match again, actually, because I had to. It was midweek, so I had it on, but I was also doing some work, so I didn't get a chance to like really dive in. And then Friday afternoon, I flipped it on again and rewatched it, and disorganized was the word that came to mind the entire time. It just, no one really knew where they were supposed to be, where they were going. The flow of the game was just off. And then all of that considered, we did control a lot of the game. Still, Zenit had a spell where they scored 2, and then they had a wonder goal at the end. Is that preventable? Yeah, absolutely. But my big takeaway from the match was it was Timo Werner's sort of homecoming party. I think he was incredibly positive. He did a lot of the work, scored 2 of the goals, and then assisted the other. He probably could have had 3. Then he basically put one on a plate for Rom. It was a tap-in, basically. It was a FIFA goal. So Timo had a great game. But yeah, when you have Reece James, Ross Barkley starting in your mid, and then you've got Saul as a wing back, Hudson-Odoi as a right wing back, Malang Sarr is in there, and we praised him before, but still not a regular feature for us. It was, as the Brits say, all 6s and 7s. It was just chaotic. It was, no one knew where they were supposed to be, and it definitely showed. I thought it's fortunate to get out with a 3-3 draw in a game, because I think a lot of times we watch matches like this and we end up getting beat. So the fact that we were able to put 3 in was positive. And you can look at a 95th minute late equalizer on a goal, couldn't have been better struck, as unfortunate. But I think we deserved what we got. I really do. And that we didn't close that game out with class. We almost got commentator cursed a little bit, where the announcer said, Chelsea should be able to see this out with little problem or little pressure or something like that. And as he said that, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And we didn't clear our lines. We didn't do enough to win that game. So tough one. Definitely a tough midweek match, but at least we're going on. The draw for the Champions League next round is tomorrow. So hopefully we don't get Bayern or don't get Real. Hopefully it's Lille or
Ajax, I think.
Ajax, yeah. Hopefully we get one of those 2, but I always think when you're in the final 16 of a tournament, all good teams play each other at some point. So I think they're going to be fearing us just as much as we're fearing them. So,
and you guys have talked positively about Timo Werner. He was Flag Stays Down man of the match. Man of the Get the Fuck Out of Here award was Malang Sarr. We did have quite a lot of feedback saying it should have been Big Rom. I know you guys tend to take a different approach to that. What did you guys make of Rom's performance?
I really didn't think it was bad. In a situation where you don't know where your service is going to be coming from, right? You have a makeshift midfield with Reece, Ross, Saul, and Cho. Like, you don't know where your service is going to be coming from. I talked to you boys about this in chat, like with the way that everything was kind of free flowing. I have no idea what kind of formation we were even running. It just seemed very Frank Lampard-ish, where just kind of everybody's out there moving around. But at the same time, I mean, Rom's doing what he does. He's a big target man up front. He's able to control the ball, try and head people on. He did have that goal, which I thought he did a great job of staying onside, because he could have easily been passed. I think he did well as far as the Get the Fuck Out of Here award. I would have leaned more towards Ross Barkley or Christensen, but I mean, Sarr didn't have a great game. So I can understand that, but I personally thought he was better than Christensen. So, I mean, obviously, everybody that participated in the poll, we appreciate it. I just think that I thought that out of everybody on the pitch, Rom probably had one of the better games, and there weren't really a lot of bright spots in that match.
That's exactly right. He definitely didn't have his best game. He didn't make a ton happen, but he did convert his chance that he got. And then he had a couple of other half chances where I thought he maybe should have distributed the ball instead of trying to take defenders on one-on-one, where he got picked. But a lot of people had poor games, and Ross made some positive things happen, but I thought he was taking off the ball far too often. And when Ross gets taken off the ball, now Zenit's in an attacking position, and they're putting the ball on target and forcing a save or getting a goal. So I thought, it's a lot more costly when Ross gets picked. So I didn't think he had his best game. Reece, I thought, played all right. he didn't have his best game. Cho didn't have his best game. Christensen, Saul, like there was one or two okay performances and then a whole lot of meh performances from my book. I don't think anyone played horribly or terribly, but I thought there was a whole lot of just not great. And I didn't think Ron was in that conversation. So I agree with you, Matt. I didn't think he was one of the worst out there. I can see how he gets blamed though. He's our big striker, right? And he can do more. He didn't have his best game, so I can see where he gets blamed. But today, I didn't think he was deserving.
And Matt, you had mentioned Christensen as a possible candidate to win it. He was listed on the poll, and honestly, he has been for the last couple matches. And that's actually what I wanted to talk about today, following the Leeds match. He came on in the 74th minute, pretty much conceded a goal on his own there. So just to sum it up here, Chelsea win 3-2. Jorginho with a pair of penalties. Mason Mount scored the first one in the 42nd. And then Rafinha and Joel Gelhardt for Leeds. It was a nail biter, and honestly, it probably shouldn't have been. I thought the substitutions were all wrong. I thought Christensen again was a terrible choice to put on the pitch. Marcus Alonso again should never play for Chelsea. He should be blasted off to the moon. But again, the guy I want to talk about is Christensen. Just because we had talked about him earlier in the year, like, oh, he's the guy who we never talked about on the pod because he's consistent. He's like a lineman. So the less you hear about him, the better. He's come up a couple times in contract negotiations in terms of going back on his word with the club. The club's kind of put him on blast, froze him out for a minute, and now has come back and 3 straight stinkers out of him. I think he's responsible for probably 4 goals in the last 3 matches, if I remember correctly. I honestly do not want to re-sign him at all. I'd prefer to put him on a free and just use that money to go towards Rudiger. With that being said, I think some of the blame on this match has to go to, even though we won, has to go to Tuchel for putting Christensen on for Dave. Why? Why are you subbing off your captain? Why are you subbing off your probably most reliable defender for a guy who is just giving up goals left and right? I don't understand the Christensen move. I didn't understand a couple of the other moves, but I'm interested to hear your guys' take on Christensen and Tuchel.
So we'll start with Tuchel. I'm okay with the move to bring on Christensen that late in the game when you're trying to see something off, considering the fact that Dave had played, I believe he played the full 90 against Zenit. And then to have him circle back, I mean, he's no spring chicken. So to give him that rest, give him 70 minutes or whatever, I can understand that. And you don't have Chalobah. You obviously, I mean, if we're comparing Sarr versus Christensen, I'll take Christensen. Those are really your only 2 options. So I'm okay with that decision. As far as Christensen goes, this whole contract thing has mentally destroyed him. I really think it has. He does not look like the same player. He doesn't have the same amount of confidence. He is just kind of out there grasping at straws right now. The Zenit match, like Christensen didn't even try to go after that ball that Claudinho got. And he was the smallest person on the pitch. He didn't even make an attempt. Sarr at least had somebody to track back and try and defend against. So he tracked back, which that's fine. I expect him to do that. Christensen stayed put. He did not move. Now, whether that's a conversation between him and Mendy, that's a whole different story. But I think that we're starting to see a mental lapse from Christensen, which at 25, 26 years old, who's been in the system, we shouldn't be seeing that, especially with somebody that we all talked about and somebody that a lot of pundits have talked about could be one of our best center backs early in the season. I think this whole contract has absolutely destroyed him.
I can't disagree with it, man. I wish I could. I don't know if it's correlation or causation yet, but ever since this stuff has come up, he hasn't been the same player. And it's tough to see because I think we all were cheering for Christensen. I know when we talked about what to do with Rudy or Christensen, and Christensen's a bit younger, give him the money that he deserves and let Rudy walk. Those were talks that were had. And it's tough to see now. I hope it's just a little bit of a rough patch. I hope the club and him are able to kind of come to terms. But when you're hearing things like with Rudiger's situation, that Rudiger's made his demands kind of known and he hasn't really wavered from them. And that's sort of it. And it's in Chelsea's hands, whether they want to oblige or not. And then you hear Christensen where it's like, well, a deal was reached and then it gets taken back. And then, they kind of agreed in principle and then he wanted more. Then he wanted a longer term. That's the stuff where you start to just wonder, like, is he being a bit greedy? Is he doing this for the right reasons? And is he just trying to get paid? Things like that. And it just starts that worry of creep starts to get your way into your mind. So I don't like it. I wish we had other options. I think if Trev was fully healthy, I don't think Christensen would be out there at all. I think we'd find a way to work around it. But given the injuries that we have, that we're just not able to right now. So I mean, we're trying to find ways of not playing him as much as we can right now before this gets resolved, but it's tough to watch.
So do we think that Christensen's contract situation is contributing to this so far negative December for the club? Because Parker, as you mentioned, Rudiger has clearly defined what he wanted. The club has acknowledged it. I'm sure the players are, on board, like, dude, get your money. The Christensen situation is a little different, and I'm wondering if it's taking a negative kind of morale effect on the club or on the team.
I think you have to look at it and say yes. I don't see how you can look at it as a positive in any way. So it sucks, but I think it's cast somewhat of a negative light, and I think it's affecting his performance. And I don't know how his teammates feel about it, but I'm sure they're annoyed by it too, because I'm sure they get asked about it as well. So no one likes when when the focus starts to go away from people's performances on the pitch. It's always a negative thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I think both contract scenarios are playing a part. Rudiger and Christensen, they're both center backs. Like, I think that in the back of their mind, they have to know, like, well, you kind of have to pay one of you. And Christensen, he's trying to make sure that he's locked down, which I completely get it. He's 25. He wants to make sure that he secures his money, gets a long-term deal. I completely understand that. Rudiger, I understand his situation too. I think all three of us are in collective agreement. Like, pay that man. Like, we see what he can do. We saw what he did against Leeds. Like, we see what happens when he's not out there. I really think that, Chelsea has to kind of pay up, which is usually never been a problem for us. So I'm not sure why it's a problem now, but I do think that it is having a negative impact on the club as a whole right now.
And we talk about Rudiger and pay that man. I mean, again, his contract is running out in 7 months here, and you could see it in drawing the 2 penalties. First of all, he's a center back. Why the hell is he? Most other clubs, why the hell is he in the box drawing 2 penalties? And then the fight after the game, he was, of course, in the middle of it. I mean, why wouldn't Rudy be in the middle of that? And then you see all of his social media after the game of him just being jacked for that win. He's a guy who loves the club. He's a guy who loves these fans, loves his teammates. If I'm sure any one of us was a part of the club, we'd be jumping on board with Rudy, regardless of contract situation. He's kind of the heart and soul of that defense, and so absolutely pay him whatever he wants.
Couldn't agree more, man. You just see the emotion. I love the emotion. I love the shithousery. I love everything about it. I saw a meme with like the David Luiz where he was kind of at the corner flag smiling. Got caught smiling a little bit. But one thing I really have liked as of recent is when our defenders do get in the box. I saw Thiago Silva did a give and go and found his way into the box in that Leeds match as well. And I know that opens us up a little bit, but I actually really like it. I think positive things have really come from it. So I love to see Rudy get forward. I actually think he's more dangerous down the wing than with the ball at his feet from 35 out. So I think he knows what he's doing when he takes those runs, and yeah, he definitely knows how to sell a pen. So love it.
So, Parker, thank you for bringing that up, because that actually just brought a question to mind. A lot of our goals recently have been on the counter. Are we pushing too much forward and opening ourselves up in a way that we really didn't do a lot before? Do we think that that's something where, maybe we need to dial it back a little bit instead of committing so much forward, that we just kind of sit back and let the front, front eight, front seven, like let them just kind of go to town, and then an occasional run, but not committing everything forward?
I think without Ben Chilwell, you kind of have to. Chile was basically a winger on his own, or left midfielder. He was a part of that attack. But now with Alonso, and then when Reece James is out for a rest, you got Dave on the other side. You need to push as many people into that box as possible, because we have maybe 4 or 5 people in attack. It's not a pretty sight. And, that's what we were kind of blasting on probably 6-7 weeks ago on the pod was, is it sustainable if you got Aspi and Alonso? So I think as long as Chile's out, you need to start pushing people forward. And honestly, I think as long as you're leaving Thiago Silva back and maybe another midfielder, you're okay. But yeah, as long as you don't have that creativity on the wing, you need something.
Yeah, I go back and forth about it. I don't know where I stand. I know that it opens us up, but I also like the moves that are made. And I think a lot of our creativity comes when we do that. And when you watch a full 90, those are some of the moments that stick out in my head as positives. So it's hard for me to argue against it, but I do know that it comes with a price. So I would say that if we could pepper that in a couple of times a match to kind of give a different look, as long as, like, if you're doing that down the left, then maybe our right winger fully kind of rotates back and covers up and things like that. But Collins, I will say one thing controversial that you're going to hate, but I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say it. Marcus Alonso still knows how to put a ball into the box, and I know he can't defend worth shit, and I know he's a liability out on the pitch for us, but he did at least have a moment where he showed why he got some of those first starts for us and why he contributes goals, because he put that ball in a dive, man, and let Mace finish it off. So it was a beautiful, beautiful ball. And I know I can't look at that in a vacuum and say he's a great player, because his performance on the defensive side says otherwise. But he had a moment, and we needed that moment really, really bad to get ourselves into that game. It was looking relatively dull for a while, and it was kind of a 50-50 ball, and Alonso took it on and then dribbled down and put a ball in. So it was kind of a goal out of nothing from my perspective, and we needed it. So sorry.
No, it's actually funny you said that, because Matt and I were at Highbury here in Milwaukee, and we were talking about what subs you make, something like that, and talking about Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic, and Matt had actually mentioned, oh, what if you put Alonso as your left winger? Then you don't have to worry about him defensively. I mean, it wasn't a bad idea.
Well, with the way that Timo had played that match, it wouldn't have been the worst option in the world. But again, we've talked about Zenit. Not everybody had their best day, and it just all happened to fall on one day. Obviously Timo had a great match against Zenit, but Leeds just it didn't look like he really got into the flow of the game. He just looked a little bit kind of out of it. Not his best day, which we've clearly seen. It happens to players on a match by match basis. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it would have been the worst idea in the world to throw him up there.
So let's talk about Timo Werner, because he had a decent game against Zenit. Had Matt, as you said, a not very good game against Leeds. At times I thought he was non-existent. He just kind of wandered off into that left wing and never really did much. Kai Havertz, on the other hand, much more industrious in the center. So, what exactly do you do at that left wing? Timo Werner seems to be hot and cold. Hudson-Odoi had a nice run there. Pulisic seems to be a sub only at this point. What do you guys do at left wing?
I don't know if it fixes our left wing, but I actually would have liked to see Timo more central in that game, in the Leeds match. My suggestion was to take Havertz off and throw Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic on the left wing, and then let them kind of feed balls into Timo. I'd like to see that a little bit more. I think it might help him out. But I think we have plenty of options. I just don't know what's our out and out best one of them. But we have all like good options out there. So I think on a regular basis, I probably would stick Hudson-Odoi. If he's not needed elsewhere, it's probably my first pick in a big match. If we're playing City tomorrow and we have our starting 11, he's probably my first pick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that in that time where Timo was out, Cho did a fantastic job out on that left wing. Honestly, I think the only reason why he's not out there is because we have a need at that left wing back position with Alonso struggling, which is tough to say just because he's not doing anything wrong. It's just where we can fit him in to make the team better. So he's kind of doing that part. I would say you want Cho as your left wing. Maybe you start looking at Timo as your second striker, or maybe that late second half sub to provide speed, a little bit of width, late in the game with tired legs, kind of the same way that we look at Christian. I just, Timo's very, very hit and miss. And we've seen that exclusively with Chelsea, and but at the same time, it's hard to try and bench him against Leeds after the match that he had at Zenit. You got to go with the hot hand, and at that time it was Timo. So I don't fault anybody on that. I think we all would have said, yeah, you got to start Timo. It's just tough that everything that Cho has done up until this point is kind of being thrown away because he has to fill that need at left back with the Chilwell injury.
Yeah, I think the fact that Cho has to play everywhere from right wing back to left wing back to left winger, all over the place, it probably doesn't do a ton for his consistency. That he's been this utility missing piece kind of a figure in our team. So I kind of feel for him. I think he's going to be fine. He's young and he's doing what he can to get out there and to show. And I think he does show when he gets out there. So I think it's all positive. But I would just love a situation where he gets 5, 6, 7 games in a row on a consistent basis at the same position where he can just start to gel in. That just, maybe that's a pipe dream, but that's what I would like to see.
So with the 3-2 victory, again, it was the last second goal on the Jorginho penalty. A lot of emotion at Stamford Bridge. Obviously beating dirty Leeds is great. Is this kind of a turning point in December, or do you think we're going to fall back into some similar patterns as we head into the upcoming week?
Who do we have this week?
Everton and then Wolves, Thursday, Sunday. And keep in mind, Everton lost 3-1 to Crystal Palace today.
Shout out to Conor Gallagher for that lovely late goal in that game. I think it's a good sign that we beat Leeds. The Zenit draw doesn't help Decemberitis, but it's too early to tell if it's a trend or if it's, because we still struggled mightily in that Leeds match. So I'm not going to pretend like we walked out and dominated and took a commanding win here, because we didn't. So it's a grind. We've said it before. It's going to be a tough December. There's a lot of matches, and the most important match is the next one. So we have to handle our business against Everton. At this point, I don't care how we do it as long as we win. I don't care if it's ugly. I don't care if I don't care how it happens as long as we win. And if we have 2 Jorginho penalties to win, great. That's what it takes to win in December. That's what it takes to win in December. So I don't think we're there yet, though, Collins. I don't think this is the turning point, as your question.
It's definitely not the turning point. I think it's a corrective step for what we've been showing lately, but December is brutal for us. And said it before, I'll say it again. We hate December. And especially with it doesn't look like we should have a tough December on paper. It really doesn't. But we're going up against teams with nothing to lose. Everton has, I think when I was listening today, they have 5 points out of their last possible 30. They need a spark somewhere. What better chance than against Chelsea? Wolverhampton, they're not a bad team. They're also going to be coming after us. Then I think we also have Brentford at some point in December. Again, a team with really nothing to lose. They're going to be coming full guns blazing. Those matches scare me more than going up against City, Liverpool, United, whoever. Those matches scare me less than what we have to face right now. You have a bunch of teams with nothing to lose. So of course they're going to come out. Yeah, they want to take down a giant in the Premier League. They want to take down one of the top teams, or as of last year, the top team in Europe. Yeah, they're going to come at you. And I think that with where we're at right now with our injury situation, that exposes a very big flaw in our system. And I honestly don't like it. I don't think any of us like it, but we just have to find a way to manage. And, if you look back at any Premier League teams that have won or anything like that, sometimes you have to grind it out ugly. Like we've said it, 3 points is 3 points. Even the Watford match, it felt like a loss, but we still got the 3 points. So it doesn't matter how you do it. It all counts the same. Find a way to get your 3 points.
See, I think this is a turning point match, because you think back to December's previous here and under Lampard and any other previous manager, and you let Leeds level it out at 2-2, and that's just kind of it. Not a whole lot of emotion out of the team. It just kind of happens. You drop points and move on, and then boom, the manager's gone in January. The emotion I saw out of the team, and honestly, what encapsulates all of it for me is that brawl at the end. You got Rudiger getting heated. You got Big Rom kind of laughing at Rudiger about it. There's a lot of emotion in the team. You got Dave blowing kisses to the Leeds fans as he's being subbed off. This is a team that's hungry, and it's good to see. So I honestly think out of those next 2 matches, Everton and Wolves, that we're going to take 6 points out of that, just because of how fired up they're going to be after that Leeds win.
I would love to see it, man. I want them to use this as fuel to come out and just be fired up. The only thing that scares me is that Leeds is the second tier kind of a club, and they weren't at 100%. That they were also had some big injuries out as well. So that's the only thing that scares me, is that we relied on a late penalty to beat Leeds. That's the only thing that scares me.
Yeah, I mean, Collins, I agree with you. Seeing that fight in the boys, if you look back at our last few matches, I don't think we've seen that. And I do think that is a big testament to the people that we had out there on the pitch at the time. I wouldn't expect Christensen to do something like that. I wouldn't expect Sarr to do something like that. I wouldn't expect Chalobah to do anything like that. That speaks to some veteran leadership. It's good. It was good to see Kai getting into it a little bit. 22 years old, he knows what he has to do, and to see him getting involved in it, and not to not to backtrack too much, but when you talk about Christensen versus Rudiger, I'll take Rudiger all day. I'll take that leadership. I'll take that fight, that fire. There are some things you just can't teach in the game, right? That's one of them. You either have it or you don't. It's a very tough thing to try and gain that as an asset when that's maybe not in your nature. So I do think that it could be. I think we have to wait and see what happens over these next 2 matches.
Well, I was going to talk about a little bit about the fact that a lot of people are saying Tuchel out. I just kind of wanted to discuss a bit about our manager. Collins, I know you've had some questions about his tactics a little bit in the past, but I still really want to go on record and say, when I listen to his like pre-match and post-match interviews, I think he's incredibly poised, incredibly composed, and he's doing a really good job managing this team, considering the fact that N'Golo Kante's been out for a very long time. Jorginho has been out. He had an injury in this match. I thought he stepped up and played a great game against Leeds when needed through some pain, which has been great. But that's Ballon d'Or. I know 2 of the top 5 players in the world voted on by the Ballon d'Or that have had injury problems. And then you throw Mateo Kovacic in that ring as well. And I don't think any team in the world is this deep where they can come out and still play the way that we play with a makeshift team and win and draw 3-3, or a makeshift team against Leeds and still, be able to win games. Chilwell, I think we're all figuring out, is a lot more important to this team than we gave him credit for at the beginning. I think he's completely distanced himself from Alonso. And then you lose him and you start, looking around and saying, shit, we need him. And he's just one player. I get it. But when that starts to all compound, when our midfield, the heart of our team a little bit from a distribution and organization basis, when you start missing those guys, you really feel the pain, and no one looks as good. Ruben Loftus-Cheek doesn't look as good without Kante and Kovacic playing there with him, and neither does our service up the left side without Chills in there, and service into the box from to Ram doesn't look as good without Chills. So I still think Tuchel's doing a good job controlling the team, controlling the emotion, controlling the narrative, and doing a good job of saying, like, look, this was on me. He's taken ownership. He said, look, this was me. We're not talking about individual performances. We dropped 3 leads in 2 matches. This is me. This is my job to control that. So he looks in the mirror and still takes blame when needed. And I think he makes adjustments and he still fixes things. So no real direct question, but that's how I feel about Tuchel. And for the people who are saying Tuchel out, I say, who better do you want that can come in and make that big of a difference above and beyond where Tuchel's got us so far?
He's kind of been dealt a shit hand, right? At least right now. Like, what do you do? Your midfield is down to Saul and Ross Barkley. What do you do? You only have so much that you can do with. Granted, it's Chelsea. We have a very good talent. We have a very good talent pool. We do have a lot of depth. But when your top 3 midfielders are essentially out, one of them's at probably 60%, who are you supposed to slot in? We've seen that Saul can't really hang in the Premier League, although I did think he had a pretty good game against Zenit, which, it's, if we're comparing last performances for Saul, anything is probably better than his last performances. But I thought that he actually had a pretty decent game in a game where nobody was really shining. So I thought he played well. Ross, he's not a defensive midfielder. He's too flashy to be a defensive midfielder, I think. At least in that Zenit game, I think he was trying to do too much on the ball, and he got absolutely throttled so many times in possession and just cheap giveaways and trying to be too cute with the ball. That's not a good position for him, but at the end of the day, he's a midfielder, so you're hoping he can do the task. RLC, we we obviously still think the world of him, but he needs a counterpart in order for him to thrive. And when you take away that impact of Jorginho, a Kovacic, a Conte, when you take all of that away, it leaves us very much exposed. And even in the center back position, we see it when we don't have Rudiger or Silva on the pitch. We look very exposed. We all know about Alonso, so we won't go into that. But we're at a very vulnerable point right now in the season. Obviously injuries hit every team at some point during the course of the season, and ours is just compounding in our historically worst month of the season every single year. So it's kind of a comedy of errors, so to speak. When it rains, it pours, and right now it's pouring. But I do think that Tuchel he's trying to find something that will work and that will also make us the same attacking minded team that we have been. So he's trying to find those right pieces, and it's never an easy task when you have a depleted roster at your disposal.
So you say depleted roster, and you went through the injuries there. Kovacic was supposed to be coming back, but then tested positive for COVID. Conte is probably never going to play consecutive matches ever again. Jorginho, again, hampered with was that hamstring or hip injury, something like that. Back. There you go. RLC, again, he can't do it on his own. Saul is trash. Ross Barkley is clearly not trusted. Do you bring back Conor Gallagher? Seems to be the question of the day after his performance against Everton.
So I'll split the fence on this one, because I've kind of got a foot in both camps. I think for right now, if you have the option, you bring him back, because you don't know about Conte. You don't know how long he's going to be able to go with his constant kind of nagging injuries. Kova, when he comes back, he'll be fine. Like we know he's kind of a workhorse. He'll be able to go however many games he needs to. Saul, I think we're all hoping that we send him back to Atletico in January. So that opens up that spot. Obviously you're going to have Jorginho playing. RLC, he'll still have his chances for development. From what I've been reading, I think Newcastle's going to try and go after Ross Barkley, which by all means take him. We'll pack his things for him. But I think right now, as a young player, it would be very advantageous for him with the form that he's shown with Palace this season. Not just what we saw today, but throughout the course of the season. He's probably Palace's best player, or at least most impactful player this year. So I think it would be a good time to bring him back and bring him into the fold and let him get that first team experience with a top caliber team. Get him set up for Champions League in England or in Europe. Get him set up on that route. Even if you bring him back and you just play him in the FA Cup or something like that, it's still, you're getting him back training with everybody, kind of getting up to that level that he's already shown that he can do at the Premier League level. So I do like that idea. On the flip side, let him develop. He's already shown what he can do. Let him stay with Palace for the rest of the year. Let him keep driving that team forward. He's arguably the most loved player at Palace right now, even above Zaha, who has been there for however many years. Like, they love him at Palace. Let him stay with him. Let him develop.
All right, Matt, we're playing gun to your head game.
No.
so gun to your head. Do you bring him back, or do you let him stay?
I bring him back.
Beautiful. Collins is laughing on mute for those listening. Because Matt loves to play the gun to your head game.
Wait, hold on. Who's holding the gun?
Your wife.
I've seen her throw and it's not that great, so I might take my chances on that.
Fair point.
Marcus Alonso then.
Touche. I think as much as the signs point to bringing him back, especially given our situation, I think the best thing for him is to let him stay. And I hate saying that. I think it's like the responsible, not sexy move. But, the sexy move is bring him back and watch him score 14 goals in the back half of the year. That would be what everyone would love to see. But unfortunately, I don't see it happening. But really, I think it teeters on the fact that Kova is coming back. If we had Kova out for the rest of the year, if it was an ACL, I think my stance changes, sort of 100% on this. But the fact that we're getting Kova back, it allows for Conte to get more rest in between matches too, where we don't have to utilize him. I think some of our problem is we had to use Jorginho more than we wanted to, just because Kova and Conte were injured. So then it has more nagging impact on him, and so when we're fully fit and we are able to rotate our midfield, I think we're great, and I think that will we have the ability to avoid some of those injury problems. So on a go forward basis, I don't see him starting over Kovacic, and I don't see him starting over Conte, and I don't see him starting over Jorginho. And if that's all the case, then I think he should start every match for Palace. Matt, you almost swayed me when you said training with Chelsea as a selling point, and I love that idea. But I think there's no substitution for Premier League matches, and I want him to start every match for Palace, because I think that's the role he's playing right now, where he's either starting or involved in most matches, and I think that's going to be invaluable for the young kid. And I think everyone knows he wants to come back. His mind isn't torn between this. I think he's like, no, I'm here for a job. I'm here to get better, and I'm coming back to Chelsea. And I think that's where he wants to be. So I love it. I think he stays the course, comes back next year, and we find a way to work him into our squad. And stuff happens over time where someone might go somewhere else, but I think we find a way to work him in next year.
Okay, I'll take the bad guy stance on this one. I think I bring him back in a heartbeat. I'm not worried about him getting playing time here. He's already statistically and rated the best midfielder in the Premier League, over Kovacic, over Jorginho. Conte hasn't played enough to register.
Third place Ballon d'Or, Jorginho. I just want to make that very clear.
Yep, get your shot in. There you go. Okay. I don't have a comeback for you today. But I'm not so much worried about, he's young, so he's not going to get as much playing time here. Thomas Tuchel has very clearly shown that if you have the talent, you will be on the pitch. Trev Chalobah is supposed to go out on loan this year. He's one of our key defenders at the moment. I think Connor, who at this point has 6 goals in the league, which would, I believe, match Mason Mount if he was at Chelsea for most of the club. He's got 3 assists, passes over 80%. I think he fits in just fine. And honestly, I think he pushes out maybe a Jorginho, maybe a Kovacic. Conte, is only going to play maybe once every other game when he's back and healthy. So there's a spot for Gallagher to fit right in. I have no worries about Gallagher not getting playing time. I do love him training with the best of the best in the world, and the 3 best midfielders in the world are at this club. So I'd bring him back January 1st, play him against Liverpool. I'm all on board.
Against Liverpool might be ambitious, but I understand your point.
No. Billy Gilmore tore up Liverpool. Conor Gallagher will score a hat trick against Liverpool.
Noted.
Billy G did tear up Liverpool. That match was phenomenal. That was so great.
And worst case scenario, you leave Gallagher at Palace and you bring back Billy G, right?
Well, he's been I think one of the things that I saw the other day was that Billy G was like man of the match like 3 games in a row for Norwich. Like when he played.
Yeah, maybe manager wouldn't have gotten fired if you would have played him. Huh.
Oh, so sorry.
Maybe he would have still, but there's still Norwich.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, so I do want to take just a real quick look ahead. We did touch on it a little bit. We'll play the gun to the head game. That seems to work real well. So we've got Everton on Thursday, Wolves on Sunday. How many points are we coming away with this week? Parker, you first.
There is only one answer to this question, man. It's 6. We're coming back. We're grinding wins out. I think anything else is not great, to be honest. I think it's you can consider it a failure. I think these are must-win matches for us, and they're both Premier League matches. I think we need the points, and I think we need to put pressure on Liverpool and City, so that when we do face both of them, we're still in striking distance. This is not a time where we can drop points and afford to. So I think we have to take 6.
I think we have to take 6. I think we take 4. I think we end up drawing with Wolverhampton. They have a lot of pace up top. I mean, Jimenez, he did get red carded, but I'm sure that'll be overturned, or he's only got a 1-game suspension, so he'll be back. You look at Podence, you look at Adama Traore, like Adama Traore on the right against Marcus Alonso. That frightens me. Even Podence, if you put him against Dave at a right wing back potentially, or even as a center back, that also worries me. They have a lot of pace. They can press. They're actually not too bad in the midfield. Their defense is a little suspect, but we've also seen that our offense can get very stagnant from time to time. So I could see us drawing with Wolverhampton, but I do see 3 points against Everton.
Matt, I'm 100% behind you on this one. I think 6 points should be the expectation. Unfortunately, I think I lean towards 4. I have no worries about Everton whatsoever. I think Rafa's going to lose his job before the end of the year. But we play Wolves at Wolves, and they've only given up 7 goals in 8 games at home this year. Though they only have scored 10 points in 8 matches. So, but I honestly see that as maybe a 1-1 0-0 draw. It's sad, but that's the reality of December Chelsea, right?
Yeah, and I mean, especially considering the fact that we don't know when. I mean, Kova should be back, not this upcoming week, but the week after, right? It's 14-day quarantine.
Probably.
Yeah, sounds right.
I just don't know if he'll be fit for it, but yeah, who knows?
And the other thing to consider is the outbreak of COVID with Premier League clubs that have happened with Tottenham, with Villa, and there was one other team. United. Yep. So who knows what that's going to look like, what's going to shake down with that. There might be more, they might be more strict on what you can or cannot do, or their time frames. So that's also something that is to definitely be considered going forward in December. So I don't know. It like I said before, when it rains, it pours, and I feel like now with this, even with this COVID outbreak that's been happening throughout the Premier League, I think that something may or may not happen, and obviously I don't want it to, but it just seems like it's kind of something in the making. So I'm hoping that's not the case, but hopefully Kova comes back. We don't know about Conte. Jorginho, who knows how long his back is going to be able to hold up. So then do we go back to RLC and Saul and Ross? Like how do we handle that? So I think there's going to be a lot of questions. So I think 4 points is a very realistic expectation.
All right. So one last thing, because we have touched on the depth of this club. quite a bit earlier in the season. We said we had a lot of depth. Now we say we don't have a lot of depth, very clearly in the midfield. What is your number one January priority?
A left back. I really think you need somebody other than Alonso. Because right now you don't have another left back. You had Chilwell and Alonso, which at the beginning of the season, they were interchangeable. But then Chills went on basically a bender of the run of his life. So, and then obviously he got injured. So it took him out. And now you don't have anybody else suitable to put in that left wing back position. And, we can question whether Marcus Alonso is even suitable at that spot. But you need to go out and either recall somebody on loan to play the left back position, or you have to go out and get somebody who is capable of playing that position at a high level. It's not going to be cheap, but I think that we have options going forward.
Yeah, I think it's either we get someone on loan to cover that left wing back, or we recall someone that we have out. So we talked a little bit before the pod about Emerson. I think on paper he would be a good fit to bring back. I don't know if we have the option to bring him back or not, but I think he would fit that role pretty well. So I think we just need a little bit more depth there, and then someone who you could maybe slot him in as a left wing back, but also slot him in as a defensive mid as well, who can be a little bit interchangeable there. We talked about the depth in our midfield, and I think if he can do both purposes and have Alonso's suit up every third game and then be able to still play in the defensive mid spot, I think that would be very welcome and somewhere where we need the depth. I think from striker to goalie to center back to our wingers, I think we're all pretty set. I mean, I think Ziyech, Pulisic don't get in every game, but they're both suitable. And Cho and Timo and Kai and Ram, I think we're set pretty much everywhere else on the pitch. It's just a little bit of depth on the mid, and then left wing back is our biggest hole.
I agree on left wing back, but I think the more pressing priority should be a third striker. I don't want to see what happened again with Timo and Ram both going out injured. I think it was kind of negligent to start the season with with only two strikers. That being said, Kai has done well, but I don't want to see him there consistently either. So I think bringing in somebody who's like Olivier Giroud, a seasoned veteran who can come in every 2-3 games and give you some goals would be crucial. But that is running up on the hour here, boys. So we'll sign off. We'll give listeners a little breather. Do want to congratulate our winner from the Champions League flag contest. The flag went in the mail today, so if you are listening, be on the lookout for that. We will be running contests at various points of the year, so make sure to follow us on social media at FlagDownPod. You can always give us a listen here as well on Spotify, Google, Apple, etc. Just search for the Flag Stays Down podcast. Boys, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we're talking after 6 points next week.
Hey, cheers to that.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Cheers.
Later, boys.